Yo guys, welcome back to a brand new video. Today, we're going to dive into 4 different tips and tricks for your character in Season 28 to hopefully improve your game. Let's go ahead and dive right in with number 1. The first one is that I see a lot of players constantly spamming the Q button. The idea is to immediately get those shrine buffs or the power pylon buff for 16 seconds, but when you're constantly spamming Q, you're often going to lose the benefit of your triune ring if you're not paying attention to where you're using the potion. Spamming Q next to a wall or some kind of terrain can cause the triune circle to spawn in a location that you can't necessarily get to. So although you want to be using your potion as much as possible, I would recommend that when you see that cooldown coming up, that you kind of navigate to a spot where you're not going to lose that triune circle in some kind of terrain or behind a wall. Tip number 2 is that this is a fantastic season for using elite hunting builds. The altar gives us an incredible amount of power this season, specifically against elites. On top of that, we also get the 1 additional progress orb for each elite pack that we kill. To quickly dive into a few of the buffs that we're going to get, we're going to start with 15% increased damage against elites. Next up here, we've got an additional 20%. On top of that, with Reverence, right below the 20% buff, we're reducing the amount of damage that we take from elites as well. This can allow certain builds to play a lot greedier and really just get off a lot of damage without really having to worry about dying. On top of that, the progress orbs that drop are automatically picked up so long as you're within 60 yards. With all of the assorted powers from the Altar of Rites, we have such a good reason this season to play elite hunting builds and to ignore most of the trash, especially when we're speed farming. One last note that I'll make about this is that this is also kind of an indirect buff to the Ingeom. Ingeom is a really popular weapon for a lot of speed farming builds, and this season, with all of the additional power that we gain against elites and all of the additional incentive that we have to hunt elites, really makes Ingeom a great choice. Now, the next tip that we're going to dive into is using your potion when you already have an active power pylon on your character. Each time you use your potion, there's a 1 in 6 chance that you are going to roll the power pylon effect for 16 seconds. If you already have an active pylon effect that is on, let's say with 60 seconds or 45, you're actually going to replace it and lose a substantial duration of that buff. So I would recommend that, especially while you're speed farming and you're not necessarily going for any record-breaking clear, you may want to reconsider using your potion while you have an active power pylon. Granted, if you are pushing for the highest possible clear that you can get, you may want to take that risk because it is only a 1 in 6 chance. But of course, for the sake of speed farming, you're going to be going so quickly anyways, and once you have a power pylon, you don't need any additional power. You should already be mowing through everything that you're fighting. Now, for the final tip today, I'm actually going to talk specifically about something for the Gears of Dreadland Demon Hunter. Most players know by this point that when you have a 65% Dawn, you generally need roughly 37% cooldown on your character to have permanent uptime on Vengeance. Where there is a little bit of misconception is if you roll, for example, a 60% Dawn. It may lead you to believe that you would need an additional 5% cooldown reduction on your character sheet to make up for that 5% loss on the Dawn. However, it's not exactly a 1-to-1 ratio, so I'm going to share a tool with you guys today, and I'll leave a link down below in the description to this, just in case you don't have a perfect Dawn yet. So this is the Dawn calculator that's available on Maxroll. When we have a perfect Dawn, we see that we need 36.51% cooldown reduction to keep our Vengeance up permanently. Now, if we just drop this Dawn down 5% and make it a 60% roll, you can see that you actually need 44.44% cooldown reduction on your stat sheet to keep up Vengeance permanently. This is about an 8% difference on the stat sheet of cooldown reduction that you would need. Granted, you're only losing 5% on the Dawn. For this reason, if you are playing this build, I would highly recommend considering that you use your primal roll on the cube for your Dawn, unless you can get a 65% ancient roll naturally. Otherwise, you're going to be kind of forced to stack way more cooldown reduction than you would normally want to on your gear. But granted, keep in mind that this season we do have access to Omen, which will give us immunity to crowd controlling effects, even if our Vengeance falls off. So if you can only keep up Vengeance most of the time, don't worry about it too much as long as you're not dying, and just spend some time trying to get a better Dawn. Well guys, as always, I really do appreciate you for tuning in. I hope that some of these tips and tricks were helpful. Go ahead and drop a comment down below, and let everybody else know what your tips and tricks are for Season 28. Really appreciate you all for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you on the next one.